people, a lot of people talk say EU people silent, not knowing say EU people dey press their own button for underground. EU people don talk say dem no go wash their eyes when be say Nigerians go dey do wetin, go dey sign petition, dey talk say make dem take action, dem go come silent. E say dem fit dey do am before. Dem say this particular election dem dey very interested. My people no be small thing o. Tinubu team wey be say Tinubu spokesman no fit sleep, wey dem dey call Dele Alake. My people, Dele Alake don run come outside say make the EU make dem face their country o. Say this one na Nigeria, this one no be white country o. We are Africa. Make dem do wetin, make dem mind their business. Say if dem dey do election for their country, dem no dey pull mouth. Now the EU people dey talk say dem condemn the election for this 2023 election. Say dem condemn am. Say all wetin dem dey ask for be say make the INEC do the right thing, make the court do the right thing, or else they go use force to come comot Oga Tinubu for office. Now Dele Alake dey talk say make the Oyibo people make dem do wetin, make dem face their country. He say because if dem dey do election, their own election too no dey perfect. Say this particular election na perfect election, fair. Say this election of 2023, say this election of 2023 e go well. Say na free and fair election. Wetin the EU people dey find, say dem dey find the country wey be say dem wan scatter. My people, make una go watch video, make una see the way EU people wan finish the APC people, wey the EU people dey talk say this thing fit dey happen for long time, but this particular one, the APC people no go scot-free. My people, make una go watch video.
Weaknesses in the polls. It also identified 6 key areas for improvement in Nigeria's electoral processes. The federal government's reaction is in response to the report submitted last week by the European Union Election Observation Mission on Nigeria's 2023 elections. The report raised concerns over the violence recorded across the country, low participation of women and people with disabilities. Arise correspondent St0rm Benjamin was at the event.
Though it's been more than 3 months after Nigeria's general elections, the challenges faced during the elections are yet to be resolved. The election petition courts are still sitting to address several issues raised by aggrieved parties who are challenging the outcome of the polls, while Nigerians are anxiously waiting at the federal and state levels for the outcome. The European Union says the general election was flawed with so many irregularities recorded, such as voter apathy, lack of punishment for electoral offenders, interferences by outsiders during the counting of votes, and the intimidation of voters.
So while the 25th February elections were held on schedule, a lack of transparency and operational failures reduced trust in the process and challenged the right to vote. Voters assigned to new polling units had difficulties in identifying their correct polling unit, and the conditions in almost half of polling units observed did not ensure the secrecy of the vote. In 16 states, the mission noted incidents of violent attacks on polling units and indeed on INEC staff and harassment of voters. The counting procedures were negatively impacted by overall poor understanding, particularly in completing forms, and chaotic and overcrowded conditions in collation centres observed.
Some of the recommendations by the European Observation Mission includes the protection of voters in future elections, establishing a robust operational framework for elections, and addressing impunity through an electoral offences court. The Independent National Electoral Commission promises to consider all the recommendations as provided by the EU mission.
As far as we are concerned, we are going to present our reports. We are going to make our submissions to the court. We are going to present what we know and what we did during the elections to the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal and all the other election petition tribunals, and then they will make a determination on going forward. But as far as the Commission is concerned, there were so many positives to this election. There were also significant challenges and problems with the election. We are going to address those challenges and those problems.
The EU delegation also visited the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, and submitted a copy of its report to the Nigerian government. The SGF is calling for more support from the EU to promote Nigeria's democracy. St0rm Benjamin, Arise News.
All right, Rufai, the report is out last week, actually, but what's making headlines, of course, today is the fact that the presidency has responded to the spokesperson to the president, Mr. Dele Alake. So there's the report. What's your take on the story?
I saw the response of the presidential spokesperson, and I laughed. Humor. Pure humor. You rebuff a report, but you don't have empirical analysis to point out the holes in the report. And you didn't rebuff it. You said it was a badly done job. No, the EU report was a well-done job. Kudos to the EU for empirically analyzing what happened in the elections and putting a report out there. A lot of Nigerians want to forget the trauma of the last elections. An election that promised so much but delivered so little. Is it the same elections that people were divided in Lagos? That town criers were coming out to tell people not to come vote? Is that same elections where people were beaten, blue, black, were hurt, and there was rancor everywhere? That our journalists, Okpe, where are you? Okpe was beaten and punched in the face for going to cover an election? Is this same election that somebody is trying to defend? This same election that we saw what happened in Obiakpo, we became a butt of jokes by the international community. This same election that on the 1st of March, Financial Times wrote Nigeria's flawed elections. Same elections that people didn't want to come. And these same elections that INEC has not been able to tell us what kind of technical glitch happened. If a glitch happens, there's going to be a technical analysis report of the nature of glitch. The first thing INEC should have done is to bring out that report. But till today, I have not seen anything of such. These same elections, and they were hurts, killings, beatings. This same election that was that lady's only offense that was gouged in the eyes. Jennifer, if my memory serves me right.
Yes, I do.
Because she went out to vote, but she said nothing was going to stop me, I was going to vote. These same elections where INEC reneged on its promises. And the defense now is that, they didn't say we're going to... Did you see Mr. Festus Okoye? When our colleague asked him, what kind of technical glitch, he couldn't answer. I said the case is in court. We'll see when the defense opens. It opens today, isn't it? 3rd of July. We'll see when the defense opens. But you see, what we are saying is for us to move a country forward, we need the truth. We have had an elections like this in 2007. But the man that benefited, Umar Musa Yar'Adua, came out to say, I know the elections that brought me were fraught with irregularities. And he gave us the wage report, which is a template for how elections should be today. We shouldn't deny the fact that the elections were filled with a lot of anomaly. 220 million population projected. Only 25 million people voted. So isn't the voter apathy shocking to Nigerians? Say, look at the chaos, look at the rancor, look at the pain that Nigerians face, look at the bewilderment that Nigerians faced after the elections. But what did the politicians do? They divided us further. EU, thank you for your very good report. Those that have ears, let them hear. Yes, some say it's a poorly done, bad job. I think they too should release their own report. Let's see. As long as they can't pick out the lies in the EU report, let's tell ourselves the truth in this country. If we want this country to grow, we must speak the truth to power every time. And that's what people don't like doing because they benefit from sycophancy. Because these same people that were hurt, all of a sudden, they are going to look for positions the next minute. Atenujeism is killing a lot of people. Atenujeism. They can't tell the truth because of what they want to benefit and going to eat. But I know Nigerian democracy will live tall. We'll come out of this. We'll keep looking at the future. There'll be possibilities that abound. But kudos on the EU for that report. Those that should take feedback should take feedbacks. And if we don't want to take feedbacks, the people are making up their minds and their decisions. And that's why you see that voter apathy is on the increase. People are not even coming out to vote again. Last election cycle, more people came out to vote than now. Dr. Abati, I yield the floor.
Okay. The EU mission report on the 2023 general election. for context, because we almost must, we should always put this in context. The European Union Election Observation Mission, led by Barry Andrews, was in Nigeria for about 3 months before the election and after the election. What is new is that European Union Election Observation Mission, EOM, as it is called, has now released its final report. It is natural for different stakeholders to react in different ways to the report. Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party say that they have been vindicated, that what the EU has done is just to confirm what they've been saying, that that election, 2023 general election, was marred with irregularities, okay? But the winning party, the ruling party, the APC, now comes around and says, look, the European Union mission, led by Barry Andrews, is guilty of bias, and that, in fact, it is based on wrong assumptions. What is the argument put forward by the government of the day? Simply that the EU had just 11 analysts and about 40 election observers across over 700,000 polling units across the country. And their argument is that, look, with 40 observers across over 700,000 election polling units and just 11 analysts in Abuja, in terms of deployment, the federal government of Nigeria, the Tinubu administration argues that the EU could not have had a favorable, objective assessment of the election. However, the thing to note here is that it's very characteristic of the Nigerian government. Anytime any international agency or observer group says anything about the economy or about Nigerian politics, or even a media house international, whether it's The Economist or any other, or New York Times, writes anything unfavorable about Nigeria, the default position is to kick and say, no, you are lying, you are biased, you are prejudiced. So that's the context in this particular regard. So nobody should also be surprised that Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party are both saying, oh, we have been vindicated. However, it was not only the European Union that observed the elections. You had local observers, we had international observers. We had observers from the West African leaders, led by President Jonathan. We had observers from the Commonwealth. We had observers from the AU. We had observers from ECOWAS. I think for Nigerians to get the right perspective in this regard, it is one, to take a comprehensive view of all these observations. Two, it is also to be reminded that this matter is, in fact, before the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. And that is why people have been saying we hope that the judiciary will do its job as the umpire that is part of the election process. Three, people should also be reminded that the EU spent about 3 months on this 2023 election process. So the government may say, oh, this is the best election ever, as Mr. Alake argues. But it is also the view of some other Nigerians that this is the most controversial and the most disputed election since return to civilian rule in 2023. Now, I've given this background to define the context. What is the rub of the matter? Now, what is more important is that the European Union made specific recommendations. I think it's more important for us as Nigerians, as stakeholders, and the relevant institutions to focus on those recommendations. What can be taken away from it? One, the EU is saying we need to pay attention to discrimination against women in political life. That's an important message. The EU is saying impunity regarding electoral offenses. We have been on this impunity against regarding electoral offenses since the West Commission recommendation. We have not addressed it. The EU is saying that we have to ensure real-time publication of results. This is an issue on which many Nigerians have talked about. The EU is saying Nigeria has to look at ambiguities in the law, in the electoral framework, and resolve those ambiguities. Okay, I've mentioned just about 4 recommendations, but they made specific 6 recommendations. But to save time, I've drawn attention to these 4 recommendations that are in the public domain. So it is not enough to just say, oh, the European Union is biased. There is something in that their report that we need to talk about, that we need to worry about, that we need to focus on. And beyond all of this, of course, is that even the blind, the deaf, and the imbecilic in Nigeria who went through that 2023 general election resolved that, look, the Electoral Act 2022 has many lacuna therein that we still have to address. These are the intelligent points, beyond emotionalism, beyond partisanship. So can we go beyond emotional ejaculation and partisanship and look at specific recommendations? Because indeed, the process of defining a proper electoral framework for Nigeria is not finished. And the new National Assembly has to take a second look at Electoral Act 2022, which many who call themselves politicians and political leaders do not in fact understand. Even lawyers are confused about many of the provisions. That's the gravamen of the matter. The big issue that the EU report projects from my own perspective, and we need to deal with those big ideas-driven issues rather than all this partisanship and emotionalism.
Absolutely. I thought one of the key takeaways from that report, which is quite detailed, and I would encourage as many people as possible to read it, is the recommendations part, particularly the priority recommendations. But let me start off with the response by the presidency, for, delivered by the spokesman or spokesperson to the presidency, Mr. Dele Alake. One of the things we were looking forward to seeing in his response was perhaps a detailed response to some of the key issues that were highlighted in that report. So the EU was very specific, and as he mentioned, as we would imagine, for an organization such as that, they would have taken their time to really detail their findings, observations, and then recommendations. What Mr. Alake does is to rubbish the entirety of the report without giving specific responses to key issues that were highlighted in that report. For instance, I'd have loved for Mr. Dele Alake to have responded to voter apathy, the issue around voter apathy, and show or demonstrate with proof that there was no voter apathy in defense of his statement that the report was not factual. He also mentioned that the report was done polling about 50 or fewer than 50 people. I wish he would also detail that, because that is it's a big stab on not just the report, but the integrity of the European observation mission who came to Nigeria and who, as highlighted by the PDP, funded significantly these elections and provided training to INEC itself. I think it's important to mention that. I'd also like for him to respond to issues around coercion of young people, engaging young people, and not maximizing youth in this particular election. Let him demonstrate with proof. It's not enough for us to receive rebuttals or rejoinders, but with just a holistic rubbishing of the report. This is an intellectual conversation or debate. So if there is anything wrong or misleading about that report, beyond just making sensational headlines as to how jaundiced the report is, it would be great for them to respond line by line, accusation or perhaps observation by observation, to defend their part. One key area I'd like to mention is the EU's observation of the role of the media, and in some cases, media suppression. In fact, the EU's report praised the way the media reported this election. They talked about the fact that the media gave equitable platforms or equitable space to all political parties. So where we had the APC come for an interview, the PDP balanced it. However, what they said was that when we had interviews with some of the key candidates during this election, they tried to avoid questions that talked about the merit of what they were going to do. Instead, spend time slinging or mudslinging their opponents. And this was clear. We saw that even on the show, whereby would try to bring issues on the table, and rather than that, would see...
My people, now the video now on a new watch finish so. On a see what happen for inside the video. All right, my people. I would like to end the video for you. Make una let me know waiting on a thing for the comment section. And if una never subscribe, make una subscribe so that una no go miss any latest gist way I dey upload. Now bye bye till I come on away next time. Bye guys, catch you in the next video. Bye guys.